Designing Sound with UVI Falcon. This is Lawrence Penkler, and today we're going to be talking about a multi-timbral hybrid synthesizer called Falcon, released under UVI. It is a extremely capable synthesizer, can work with a multitude of synthesis techniques ranging from additive to FM, wavetables, some physical modeling, and its modulation options are endless. The interface, when first opening it up, might be a little bit daunting, and this tutorial should help you to get going with creating your own sounds and actually creating your own individual patches with this incredible instrument. When you first open up the interface, there are no sounds. On the right hand side there's a navigation pane which allows us to actually access all sorts of different elements. The standard sound banks are available under the browser, so the factory library allows us to load pre-created sounds directly from the actual library over here by just double clicking. Opens up the instrument, and most users will be satisfied with a basic interface that has macro controls which will allow you to change the key features of the given presets. This tutorial is more focused on creating our own individual sounds and actually getting stuck in with the sound design capabilities of the program. So I'm going to empty out the part, and we're going to actually look at the edit tab in the central pane over here, and starting to actually load different components which are available within the interface. So if we look at the third tab over here, we actually have two drop-down menus, one which deals with samples. There's some IRCAM based granular effects which are really interesting. You can check out some tutorials on those, but we're going to have a look at the synthesis components to start off with over here, and we're going to start with noise. Double clicking on these does nothing. You can't actually get them to load directly. They need to be dragged into the actual key map over here. For those of you that are familiar with samplers and that sort of thing, this already opens up a whole bunch of capabilities in terms of actually creating key groups and having multiple sounds that are actually layered across the keyboard. We're going to start by just laying everything across the whole breadth of the MIDI map and play with some noise to start off with. So I've just loaded up a noise component over here. We've got a variety of different noises that we can work with. Blue, white, pink, brown. We've got some static effects as well, some dust which allows for creation of sort of vinyl scratched effects and that sort of thing. I'm going to go with Lawrence noise just because, and we can then make that stereo wide. The noise on its own doesn't allow us to do very much. There aren't actually any other controls apart from the stereo enhancement over here. What we are going to be able to do though is we're going to be able to actually load effects to manipulate the sound. So I'm going to add a comb filter over here directly into the key group layer. You can see we've got key groups over here. There are other effects that can be loaded in different parts of the synthesizer, but for the moment we'll just stick with the component that we're busy with at the moment. So comb filter. I'm going to load that in, and I'm going to tune the cutoff frequency. You'll notice when you double click on the actual control, it gives you a frequency, but it also gives an actual note to that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to map this to A1 over here. It's 110 Hertz. I'm going to crank the resonance up so that we can actually get a tone out of this, and I'm going to turn on key tracking to 100%. Our noise is now a bass. So the bass tone that we've got now is a solid kind of drone type of tone that we have. So we might want to add something additional to the part itself. So in the tree tab over here, it'll actually break down the instrument into its different parts. And we should be able to add an additional layer. We've got layer 1, which is what we're working on at the moment. So if I click on the program, I should be able to add an additional layer. So this is going to be layer 2. As I click on it, there's nothing in that layer, and you can mute and solo these layers individually, so you can kind of build your tones separately and then add them back together. So for layer 2, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drag in a FM module. So same thing, I'm going to map it across the keyboard. For users of Ableton, this is reminiscent of some of the algorithms that are available in Operator. We've essentially got 4 different operators that we can build our FM tones with. So if we choose a straightforward algorithm with 2 carrier modulators that are running in parallel, we should be able to, by killing this one, just have a single sine tone over here. And we can modulate that with full numbers, which will give us very consonant type of tones. And then if we change it to non-integer values, we're going to get more sort of inharmonic components that are going to be added into that. Enabling snap will actually just make sure that it stays in integers. So we can actually build that in. And then if we add in B over here, we can see that is a modulator. If we change its ratio, we've got standard sort of FM tones that are available. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a secondary carrier over here in the form of C. And I'm going to modulate that with D, make that a little bit higher, and we've actually got feedback that we can add into this as well. All right, so that gives us a very sort of FM-ish kind of chime type of tone that we have on the go over here. The envelope for this doesn't really have a bell-like decay. We really want to have a decay that is a little bit more bell-ish. So we can actually add modulation directly to the gain of the module over here, and choose from a list over here, and we're going to just choose a new envelope over here, kill the sustain version of it, and we're just going to bring up a certain amount of decay on it. So bring up the decay. Right clicking allows us to actually change the curvature of that decay, and we will be able to got a little bit of beating that is happening in there as well. So that gives us a different component. In order to be able to actually create a bit of a sequence from that, we can add some events. Under events, we'll be able to add things like arpeggiators, chord effects, and that sort of thing. So I'm going to add a sequencer to this, which gives us a variation on top of that. If I now bring the bass back in, we have a varying tone that actually comes in. We might well want to add a certain amount of reverb to this part as well. So we should be able to add that as an effect to this auxiliary effect, and we can just use this component to add an additional reverb to this. A little bit more eerie and that sort of thing. So that gives us an idea of the FM component. If we want to, we can add an additional layer again for an additional instrument, or you can add different parts. So this would allow us to, for example, set up the synthesis side of things, a pad, a bass line, a lead, or something like that, and then we could open up an additional part for some drums, for example. So if I go back into the edit pane over here, in my instruments, my selection of devices, I can choose drum. So if I drag this in, it'll give me my default drum setting over here. I'm just going to change the input to match channel 1 and place this in the correct place. Alright, this is the default drum noise, so it doesn't really do very much, but the drum synthesizer allows us to actually create a whole bunch of different percussive tones. We have a waveform over here, which we can tune, and it has a built-in pitch envelope, which allows us to actually give it a certain amount of shape. standard pitch modulated bass type of tone. We have a noise component that's built in as well. Not really that useful for a kick drum, but we can add a little bit of it, maybe bring the filter down a little bit, just so that we have got some of that. And then there's a single band of EQ, which we can also use to emphasize some of the characteristics of the actual tone. So this would actually give us a first component in terms of a kick. We can then actually add an additional drum module. All right, so we have an additional drum module which is added on top of that key group, and that we could use to, for example, enhance the transient a little bit more, so that we have got a sharper attack kind of tone that actually comes through on this. So just a bit more of a clicky thing, so that it actually cuts through on other devices that might not actually have sufficient bass response. So that is our drums tone. Each of these actually does have a set of presets that can be used to start off with, and those can be dragged directly in. But the actual capabilities of the modules in and of themselves are quite interesting in terms of actually understanding some sound design techniques and just building into the actual capabilities of the program. Thank you for tuning into the short tutorial. Hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, cheers.